Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Land Development Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Glick. If this is your first time joining us each week, when you tune in, you'll hear one of a couple of different types of shows. Sometimes when you tune in, you'll hear our interview style shows where we have on someone associated with the land development industry. We talk about their origin story, and then we dig into some of the projects that they've worked on over the years. Then other times when you tune in, like today, we have industry news. That's where we pull up three different headlines and we talk about what those headlines mean for the industry. And on these industry news episodes, joining me as always is Charles Covey. Charles, how's it going?
Hey, hey.
So I was thinking before we started recording today, I was kind of thinking about the changing of the seasons. I guess we're here
Mm.
in late October, and there's a lot of stuff on the home front that kind of indicates that things are changing. Like my daughter just had her last soccer game, so fall soccer comes to an end. My oldest son just finished cross country, so cross country comes to an end. And then my other son starts, he has basketball starting, and so it's kind of a interesting time of the year, both on the home front, but we're also, as this thing is released, recording this just a couple days before when it's going to be released, but 2 weeks from when this is released is the election. So we've got a lot of we've got a lot of stuff going on. Just I look at it from on my home front here, like all the stuff going on in my own house and all the activities and stuff that are stopping, starting, and things of that nature. But man, we've got a lot of stuff going on, just as a whole right now in this country.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. There's so much going. We've been talking about this for a while, like saying, "Hey, this is a big year. Hey, there's a lot of stuff happening," and it sounds redundant, but I don't see a time in the recent history outside of maybe COVID where we had this much unknown, this much going on. So I think it's fascinating, and I'm loving it.
Yeah, well, we're gonna get into the articles here today. We're gonna dig into a little bit about some comments related to the recent hurricanes down in Florida. What that means for the real estate market there. Getting into some of the activity that has been going on or hasn't been going on with respect to the Dallas Fort Worth market and office space. And yeah, so we've got some good stuff to talk about here. So let's go ahead and get into the first article that comes to us from Fox Business. The headline for this article reads: O'Leary dismisses concerns over Florida hurricanes' impact on booming real estate. So this one is actually a short video clip. So I'm going to play this really quick, and then we will react to this. And I guess before we jump into this, since some of you I know that listen each week are new to the show, each of these episodes we actually publish on YouTube, where you can follow along, and we pull up the headlines and we pull up the videos, and you can actually watch them. You can watch the video of it. So if you're a visual person and you want to actually see everything we're going through, head over to YouTube and you can check out the episodes there. But for those of you, which is the majority of you who listen in each week, obviously you get the audio and we read everything for you. So this can be consumed either audio only, or you can actually get the video on YouTube. So anyway, with that said, let's get this video pulled up here, and then we'll react.
Emerging hurricanes in a couple of weeks in Florida. Insurance premiums sky high, property taxes probably going up significantly as well. Does this make Florida real estate less attractive?
No. I live
Really?
in Florida. No,
I know you do.
no. Listen, we have lived with bad weather forever. This is hurricane season. This is a particularly bad hurricane season. But what drives Florida is great policy on tax, great business regulatory environment. So you've got lots of jobs there. You've got all these guys from New York and New Jersey and Massachusetts moving their financial services companies because of the punitive tax regimes of those states. And then the one thing, Stuart, that matters the most, there comes a point in your life when you're just too old to be cold and you want to be warm. I like to wear flip-flops. I walk on the beach every day. I ride my bike 12 miles. Listen, I can't get that anywhere else. I'm a Miami dude.
Are you referring to me being old and having to live in New York in the cold, and I can't go down to my house in Naples, Florida? Are you talking about me, Mr. Wonderful?
Well, the guys in Naples have dinner at 6 o'clock at night. I'm having lunch at 6 o'clock in Miami, okay? That's what's going on there.
But that's your problem, son, let me tell you. Mr. O'Leary, I think you're all right, and I hope you'll come and see us again real soon. Have fun in Miami, son. See you later.
So I wanted to so on that, I guess one thing I want to point out just really quick, because we've talked about before, as we've in the last episode, or maybe the last couple episodes, we talked and covered the recent hurricanes that have come through Florida, and the Carolinas, and just the the havoc that the hurricanes have had on that region. And I was just interested in the number of hurricanes that we've seen. So I did pull a graph here that shows, let me pull this up, a graph that shows the average number of hurricanes that we've seen in the North Atlantic, since it goes from 1851 all the way through the forecast of 2024. I don't know how accurate these numbers. I always wonder how accurate are numbers that go back to 1851. I mean, that's a long time ago, and were they counting everything, and what was the
Right.
measurements and everything? But the average that they have on here going back to 1851 is a total of 14 named storms in the Atlantic hurricane season. And so the estimates for this year, projections were high. They expected a high hurricane season of 17 to 25. And what we've had so far this year is 15 tropical storms and hurricanes have been formed so far in 2024. So we're close to the average, but I think two of those storms that we had were just, they were really bad. I mean, they were a category 4, category 5. I think when the one hit land, it wasn't a 5 when it hit, but they're very powerful storms and a lot of impact. So anyway, I just wanted to do that quick research and pull that up, because it was just interesting to me to see kind of where we're sitting during this hurricane season versus past ones. But anyway, getting off the topic a little bit there, but what are your thoughts on what this could mean for the state of Florida? Is it really just a policy versus risk thing that people are weighing when they decide where they're going to relocate?
Yeah, I think that it is a factor, and I know this because some friends of mine that have been involved in, in the hurricanes over the last couple of weeks and last month. They're definitely thinking about it, and they're like, "Yeah, do I really want to deal with all this bullshit every time we have this?" And it can be an ordeal, and insurance costs, of course, going up. So to some people, it's going to be a factor. To other people, it's like, "Hey, I have enough money that it doesn't really matter. I can leave town when there's a problem, and when there's some damage, I just fix it, and I like the weather." So I think that there's going to be, I think that people with money and means will continue to flock towards comfort, and the weather there. I mean, I'm the same way, just like O'Leary. I would prefer to be in flip flops and shorts and a t-shirt all year round. So even Dallas for me is too cold. So I love the warm weather. So I get that idea, and I think that's going to continue. People want the comfort of nicer weather. To those that live in the Northeast, I don't know how they do it. I don't know why they would stay there. The New York weather is in the wintertime, it's just awful. So, yeah, there's a reason all these companies are moving to Florida. I think that you're gonna see people who maybe don't have quite the same means. They're saying, "Hey, I gotta get out of California. I can go to Florida or I can go to Texas." And I'm just, I'm a blue collar working person. And it's a Texas or Florida decision in many cases because those are the red states that people are looking to go to. And I think it will be a factor because the cost of living is going to be lower in Texas. So, as a Texas developer, this is good for me. There's going to be continue to be more people coming here. It's not going to eliminate the people going to Florida though. There's still going to be people going there.
Yeah, and I wonder too. So my parents live in Central Florida, and so they're not in a coastal town or anything like that.
Sure.
It's not. I mean, it's not scaring them away. So it makes me wonder too. Like, are people who do locate there, who are maybe not super wealthy, but they want to live in that state, will they look for more areas to live more inland, knowing that they're only an hour drive away from the coast if they do want to go there for the day and still get that same tropical experience that they versus living in an actual coastal town where they tend to be impacted a lot more, because once those storms hit the land, they tend to decrease in strength by the time maybe they get to the middle part of the state. It's still very
Right.
heavy winds, a lot of rain, 12, 14 inches of rain in a very short period of time and everything, so a lot of flooding and stuff. But the impact is a little different than what you would see, say in the latest storm in Tampa, and Sarasota, and that area and everything. So I don't know if that will be a change that we see with people, but it's at least something I've seen, with my parents, that they're not itching to leave. They're staying down there. They like the
Yeah.
weather.
I think the effect that we're going to see is probably more on businesses than it is on the individuals who are really wanting the lifestyle. If you're a business, you don't care. Your business doesn't care if it's close to the beach. And in many cases, maybe the employees care a little bit, but in some cases, you're going to be able to find people to do the work in your business somewhere else that might be a little bit safer, a little bit less unknown to deal with during hurricane season. So, perfect example: if you have a manufacturing business and you're in Tampa and you're tired of the premiums going up and you're tired of having to deal with this storm surge crap and all of the associated, you don't have power for 7 days or whatever it is, you move that same business to somewhere in Texas and you don't have that problem. So I think there's going to be some of that. I'm really curious to see how this plays out, though. We'll track it.
Yeah, no, for sure. All right, well, let's go ahead and move on to article number 2. This one comes to us from CNBC. The headline reads, Fed Governor Waller sees need for more caution ahead when lowering interest rates. So, reading from the article, Federal Reserve Governor Christopher Waller on Monday signaled that future interest rate cuts will be less aggressive than the big one than the big move in September, as he expressed concern that the economy could still be running at a hotter than desired pace. Citing recent reports on unemployment, inflation, gross domestic product, and income, the policymaker indicated that the data is signaling that the economy may not be slowing as much as desired. While we do not want to overreact to this data or look through it, I view the totality of the data as saying monetary policy should proceed with more caution on the pace of rate cuts than was needed at the September meeting, Waller said in prepared remarks for a conference at Stanford University. The Federal Open Market Committee at its September meeting took the unusual step of lowering its baseline interest rate by a half percentage point or 50 basis points to a target range of 4.75% to 5.0%. In the past, the Fed has only done that during times of crisis, as it prefers to move in increments of a quarter percentage point or 25 basis points. Along with the cut, officials indicated the likelihood of another half point lopped off in the final two meetings of 2024, along with another full percentage point of cuts in 2025. However, Waller did not commit to a specific path ahead. Whatever happens in the near term, my baseline still calls for reducing the policy rate gradually over the next year, he said. So, this is something we obviously have been following this for quite a while, quite a number of weeks as we led up to the interest rate cut that happened back in September. I think the initial prediction, at least that we had heard, and that I know you were thinking of going into November and December, was that we'd see a quarter point in those 2 months for an additional half point. It seems like that's consistent with what we're seeing here. I'm not sure, the message that he had felt very, it felt like, hey, we're not going to do anything else the rest of this year, but then it also made it seem like they're still going to do the quarter points. But maybe there were some people out there who were thinking, they took this aggressive action in September, and we're going to see that same aggressive action happen in November or December, where they might do another half point or something and give us an additional full point. But it just doesn't feel like that's going to be the case here.
Yeah, it does seem that way, and I don't think there's. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there's any historical uh, record showing half point and half point together. Half point's a pretty big cut for them in one go, so I don't think they've ever done back to back half point. So I think, this tone here is very indicative of caution. So I think a half point cut is completely out of the question at this point. Maybe we get another quarter by the end of the year, and then I don't know. All the lagging. I've talked a lot about this till I'm blue in the face about the bad data that they're using. So we'll have to watch this data and see how much the data is lagging and what that looks like into the first part of next year. But it does kind of give the feeling to me that we get a 25 basis points this year, maybe again in the spring, maybe another one later next year. But it seems like definitely they're kind of preaching this whole caution thing to just set the tone of we're not in a rush.
Yeah. And it's just, and I mentioned this on the previous call, but or in a previous episode that we talked about, but what we're looking at right now is a next meeting being November 6th and 7th. So right around election time, and then the final meeting of the year is on December 17 and 18. So
Mhm.
we will not know by the next episode that releases, but after that, we're gonna have 2 episodes from now, we're gonna have a couple very important things we're going to be talking about related to the election, policy implications from that potentially, and then also with the uh, what the Fed decided to do in the month of November. I think what we see in November is going to be pretty telling for what we see the rest of the year. If we get a quarter point in November, which it seems like we're going to, um, I think it'll be pretty likely to see that same thing happen and kind of finish out the plan. Versus, I feel like if they don't do that, that it might cause some cause a reaction by the market. Not that they should necessarily think about, not that they have to worry too much about that. They need to do what's best for, for correcting things. But at the same time, it feels like if you are planning to go a certain direction and then it's like, hey, let's diverge from that and not do that, it could signal something to the market that, when the market's expecting a rate cut and they don't get it, just don't know what that's going to do to the market as a whole.
Yeah, agreed.
All right. Well, we've talked about this a lot, so let's go ahead and move on to the next one. We'll continue to talk about this in our future episodes, just because it is so important. And it's a lagging. We've also talked about it's a lagging number. So even if there is a rate cut, most of the time, I know Charles, as you said in the past, mortgage rates have already taken into account cuts, and so but then the rest of the market tends to be more lagging, where you start to see things, 3 4 months down in the future that start to change based upon rate cuts that happen. So it's not like a rate cut happens in November or in December, and all of a sudden immediately we start to see things change. It's going to be a lagging effect from the rate changes.
Yep.
All right, let's move on to the third headline. This one comes to us from the Real Deal Real Estate News. Headline reads: Office construction slams on brakes in Dallas Fort Worth. No major office construction starts in the third quarter for the first time since 2010. So, reading from this article, the first major lull in office construction in over a decade hit Dallas Fort Worth. No major office construction projects broke ground in the third quarter, marking a significant shift for a region that has seen years of continuous growth and developments. The Dallas Business Journal reported, citing a recent report from JLL. The last time DFW experienced a quarter long pause in office construction starts was following the aftermath of the Great Recession in 2010, JLL research manager Micah Rabalis said. The construction stall has raised concerns about the future of office development. The office vacancy rate in DFW rose to 26.7%, pushing developers to reevaluate their strategies and consider the implications of a potentially overbuilt market. Leasing activity remained robust, however, with about 3.7 million square feet of deals signed in the fourth quarter, a slight increase of 0.4% from the previous quarter. The majority of those leases were renewals, highlighting a trend where companies are favoring short-term extensions over long-term commitments. The largest leases included Bank of America's renewal of 553,000 square feet in Addison and Aimbridge Hospitality's for 248,000 square foot extension in Plano. Remote work and tumultuous political climate are affecting the leasing environment, said TD Briggs of JLL. I think that's going to continue to drive the flight to quality trend. And if there's less new product underway, it's going to put more competition on the existing, well built, well amenitized, located stuff. Looking ahead, Robolis predicted DFW will experience positive momentum in the office market by 2025, especially as demand for quality office spaces continues to grow. And so I had one other article kind of related to this that I was going to touch on really quick before we jump into this one and react, mainly because it feeds into this a little bit with the talk that we've had about remote work versus in-place work. And so I added a fourth article for this particular episode. But again, it's going to feed right into what we're talking about here, and then we'll react to it. But the fourth article is related to Amazon and its decision to move into full-time 5 days a week in person, office work. And so this article comes to us from CEO Today. And the headline reads: Amazon's AWS chief issues bold message on in office work. Quote, find another job, end quote, if you disagree. So, reading from this article quickly here, in a bold move signaling a significant shift in workplace culture, Amazon Web Services CEO Matt Garman has made it clear that employees who oppose the company's new 5-day in office requirement are welcome to seek employment elsewhere. During an all hands meeting at Amazon's second headquarters in Arlington, Virginia, Garmin emphasized the importance of collaboration in driving innovation and cultural development within the tech giant. If there are individuals who do not thrive in that setting and prefer not to participate, that is acceptable. There are other organizations available, Garmin stated, as reported by CNBC. This unambiguous stance highlights Amazon's commitment to fostering an in person work environment, which the company argues enhances team collaboration and effectiveness. Around 37,000 employees have joined an internal Slack channel advocating for remote work, voicing their dissent regarding the return to office policy. Garmin acknowledged that this feedback during the all hands meeting, stating 9 out of 10 people are actually quite excited by this change. He also suggested that some flexibility would be granted, allowing employees to work from home on occasion with their manager's consent, particularly if they need a quieter environment to concentrate. Garmin underscored the importance of the in office mandate in upholding Amazon's unique culture and its set of leadership principles. Among these is the principle of disagree and commit, which encourages employees to engage in respectful debate and challenge one another's ideas, a practice he admits can be challenging to implement via the company's video conferencing platform, Chime. So, again, I just wanted to mention that. I know it's not maybe directly related to the DFW article that we just read there, but I do think that some of these bigger companies from time to time will set trends that others are going to potentially follow. And this is something where I've always had the personal belief that it's very hard to build a company culture that you're looking to build when you're remote and you're not face to face. Even if you do get together in person once or twice a year, it's just not the same as constantly collaborating and being able to talk to somebody next to you and get up on the whiteboard and actually work in person to challenge the status quo that may be going on in the organization. So seeing Amazon do this is it's actually not something I thought was going to happen. I thought it would be more of maybe a hybrid or whatever, and it sounds like they're being a little flexible. But anyway, I'm not sure how this feeds into what we're going to see in the DFW market. And I know you live there, so you see a lot of what that article reported at, saying that there's no activity going on. But I think you've seen some different things down there.
Well, to touch on the Amazon thing real quick, it's fascinating, and they're such a large employer that this is setting a tone and a trend in the marketplace. Can't deny that. So I like that they're being committed to the culture and that for what they want to do, what they want to accomplish, having people in person gets them there. And I think that they're probably right in that case. That doesn't apply to every business model, and that doesn't apply to every set of core values and every set of goals. So there are companies that can operate really efficiently in a remote model. Amazon saying we're going to do it differently. I think it probably sets a trend that some other employers, small to medium size, that were like, I'm not really sure if I should do this. And what if all the people leave? I think this will give them a little bit of confidence that, hey, like I can now say that I can do that. So we'll see how that plays out. But I think this is a notable stance from Amazon and probably sets a tone in the marketplace. It's pretty important. Um, in the Dallas market, that that single quarter of no office starts, I think there's a lot of context there. I think that it's not an insignificant statistic, but I think there's a lot of context that goes around that. Like if you drive through DFW right now, you see cranes everywhere. There's office going up, some really notable office projects that are going up. Now, to the point of that article, the flight to quality is very clear. Two or three story sprawling suburban office is dead. There's not a single one of those going up, and we're not going to see that for a long time. If you own one of those buildings, you're not feeling too good about it right now. But the really well located live, work, play environments, those are continuing to be very popular. So the ones that we think about, whether it's Uptown Dallas is enormous, uh, Legacy in Plano, the Star in Frisco, like these all have very low, if any, vacancy in their office, and they're planning for building more office now. So we're going to continue to see that flight to quality. And by quality, we mean that live, work, play, very high end environment. So I think there's a few trends there with, you're seeing employers scale back total square footage. So they may be renewing lower square footage. They may be going to a new location, getting a little bit smaller space as opposed to just giant sprawling cubicles everywhere. But we're still seeing, quality being the focus, and they're not scared to pay for it for these really, really premier locations. So that's going to continue. There's still plenty of office getting constructed here. I think a giant factor there is that there's a lot of big deals that are being built right now, and financing on office or any real estate is very challenging. Like, it is tough out there. And so I think that's a big factor. As interest rates drop, we may see that those deals make it easier to finance into the spring.
All right. Well, I think as I'm interested to really follow along with this, and I've talked about it on other calls, but having a small team myself, that is pretty much all remote, but we do hop into an office every once in a while, at least once a week. We hop into an office and get together and work in the same office. But um, I see that I see that changing even with us. Like, we realize that when we get together in person, just how much better of an experience that is, and how much more we get done. Now, in our case, we happen to the team happens to live in the same city and not nearby each other, so that's definitely possible. I think one of the big advantages of the whole remote culture has been that you have access to talent around the
Right.
world,
Yep.
instead of just having access to talent in your local community. And so, maybe you need someone who's specialized in my case, in the tech field, you need somebody who's specialized in a certain technology. Well, what are the chances that the best person for that role is going to be made up in the, half a million people that live within the area where I'm at who could realistically commute to an office? And, the chances are not, you could probably find somebody who understands it, but are you going to find the best person for the role? Probably not. So I think we'll still see some of that, and maybe there's just certain, like you said, there's certain positions that will probably continue to be hired remotely because you just have a bigger pool of people to choose from in that particular case. So it's going to be interesting to see how the big companies react, but also how do the mid to small size companies that tend to, um, mirror a lot of decisions that these bigger companies make. How do they end up reacting to this as well? Do they do the same thing? Do they continue to be remote? And what does that look like as we go forward?
Well, I think a big key here with Amazon is you're seeing a trend towards that creative element. They're trying to stay ahead, right? Everybody is gunning for Amazon. They're the 500-pound gorilla. So you look at how Google did this in the 90s and the 2000s, and they had to have people there, and they had to foster a wildly creative environment. Google didn't care if you had 100 shit ideas as long as you had one really good idea, and anything they could do. If you need to go outside and play volleyball for a few minutes and then go get your free lunch in their cafe, but you're going to come up with a good idea because of that creative nature, that's what's going to keep them ahead. And so I think that scenario and that creative environment, I think that's Amazon's got to stay ahead to maintain their position and to stay the best, the most competitive. And I think that's really the intent there. We'll see how it plays out. I think they're probably correct in wanting to have that more creative environment that comes up with. They just need one or two good ideas a year, and whatever it takes to get those ideas, whether it's the collaborative process or however they're going to go about it, getting those creative ideas to keep them more competitive and keep them ahead is crucial.
Yeah, no, for sure. And one other thing, just to add on to the tail end of this episode, is that I had already mentioned this episode is going to, the time you're hearing this or when it's released is going to be a couple weeks out from the election. The next industry news episode after that is actually going to be released on election day. So I just wanted to take a moment and just I think it's very important to look at kind of where we're sitting as as a country, and where we're sitting right now with the options we have in front of us for, where we're going to head. I think with our industry, it's clear where both of the candidates put their emphasis and what they see as important. You have one candidate in Harris who is more on the demand side with, giving money to people to maybe purchase a house, and then on the other side, we have more tax incentives and we have more supply side help that is being looked at from Trump's side. I think most people in the industry feel like the supply side is what we really need. We don't need more demand side because the demand is there. It's just people can't, you know, the the product isn't there for them to actually purchase. And so, you've got, from when you're hearing this, you've got 2 weeks to make your decision, and encourage other people to get out there and vote for the candidate that makes the most sense, for our country, for our industry, and everything like that. So, spend some time, figure out what decision you're going to make, and I definitely encourage you to vote. Get out there and vote, and yeah, just wanted to make mention of that before we closed out this episode.
Yep. Good points. Good points.
All right, anything you want to add before we come to a close, Charles?
Such a big time in our country's history. So much going on. I mean, we just got all manner of things. It is fascinating to there's some serious issues happening with FEMA, some of the other organizations that are not helping people, but to watch regular Americans pull together and help in the times of need, and we're doing some stuff internally to help with the flooding in the Carolinas, and it's really cool to be a part of that and to see what people will do when there are tough times. So the American people are phenomenal, and there's some issues. There's some issues with the government, but the people are great, and I think that's been really cool to see. And I don't think that the outcome of an election doesn't change that. And so we have a phenomenal ability to rise up and tackle challenges, and that's been cool to see.
Yeah, well said. All right, for all you listening in, if you're not already subscribed to the show, maybe you're listening for the first time, maybe you're listening to a few episodes and you haven't clicked that subscribe button, I would encourage you to do so. That helps more people find our show by increasing us up in the rankings and everything. So click that button. And last thing I'll ask for you is, if you have been listening for a while and you have not left a rating and review for us, whether you're on Apple or you're on Spotify, wherever you're listening to us, again, it goes a long ways in helping us increase our location or get in front of more people through the algorithm and stuff. So would really appreciate you taking the time to do that. It just takes a couple minutes and it would mean a lot to us. So with that said, that's all for this episode. We will talk to you all next week.